Fantastic. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned in to Sustainability Summit 2021. We are on day 2 and we kickstarted the day speaking about sustainability in packaging. We still are on that segment. We are now on to our second panel discussion, engaging about packaging extended producer responsibility. A lot of us might not know what EPR is about, but it is a practice and a policy framework in which producers take responsibility for the management of their packaging products after their primary use. It is the commitment made by producers to facilitate a reverse collection mechanism and recycling of post-consumer packaging products. The objective is to bring packaging back into the system to recover the resources embedded in the post-consumer waste. In South Africa, EPR continues to be voluntary and industry-led. Recently, the government has introduced legislation to support EPR and enable the packaging industry to divert waste from landfill and to advance the circular economy. Of course, the session will then explore the current EPR legislation framework, the challenges thereof and opportunities, innovative packaging collection solutions, and collaboration with government to increase packaging diversion away from landfill. With that, ladies and gentlemen, once again being joined by Tetra Pak, allow me to introduce the cluster leader sustainability, Tetra Pak, who's in charge of the Greater Middle East and Africa, Mr. Rodney Renders.
He's here to join us. Welcome, Rodney. We also have the Executive Director at Packaging SA, Shabir Jedham. Please then correct me there, Shabir, in terms of pronunciation. We also have Fiber Circle Producer Responsibility Organization for Paper and Packaging, Mr. Francois Marias. Welcome, Francois. We also have co-founder of Kitoti, Gift Lubele. Welcome, Gift. We also have Salga with our South African Local Government Association, very critical to this conversation. Welcome, Mr. Bala Nengovela. Thank you very much. Let's kickstart the conversation with you, Mr. Rodney.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and the introduction there. I think this is a very, very important subject, extended producer responsibility. As Tetra Pak, I mean, we fully support EPR on a global basis, and we've seen EPR being implemented in many, many markets. As Tetra Pak, we operate in 170 markets globally. And in some markets, in particular developed markets, we've seen that EPR, if implemented correctly, with proper waste management, can actually lead to a significant increase in recycling rates. Okay. For the past few years, it was mainly Tetra Pak driving the recycling of beverage cartons with 2 recyclers in South Africa. What's great about EPR is that we're now working with our competitors and we're actually working on a newly formed product recovery organization called Fiber Circle to actually put together the EPR plan for beverage cartons. We're very excited. We spent a lot of time on putting this plan together. It's not finalized yet, but what we are seeing over here is that we're working together with our competitors. Our customers are getting to understand what EPR is going to mean for them. And ultimately, we're hoping that it's going to lead to a significantly increase in recycling rates. So thank you very much. I look forward to this panel discussion with my colleagues over here.
Thank you very much there. Mr. Shabir?
Shaban, thank you very much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Yes, Packaging South Africa, we have been working with government over many years and also have worked very closely in terms of developing the EPR regulation. Going back to about 2009, the issue of industry waste management plans were discussed with government, and it went on for a while. Then we had government, a Section 28 notice, which was published by government, which was meant to be an EPR tax. And as Packaging South Africa, we lobbied strongly with government and indicated that an EPR tax won't be beneficial or as beneficial as implementing industry-managed and industry-funded extended producer responsibility scheme. So in light of that, Minister Creasy acceded to our request, and she developed the EPR scheme under Section 28 of the National Environmental Waste Management Act. So in terms of EPR, as Packaging SA, we certainly welcome EPR. It's been a long road that has been going on for 11 or 12 years now. So we will expect some teething problems, as this is normally the case initially when new legislation becomes effective in any country or any type of legislation. And us as industry and both the DFFE, we do understand that it will be a learning curve for all stakeholders in the value chain. However, as Packaging SA, we welcome EPR, as I've mentioned. EPR is now mandatory, and Packaging SA and its members, which include the existing producer responsibility organization, will work together with government to ensure the successful rollout of EPR in our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shapir. Truly looking forward to exploring your thoughts on that. Francois Marias?
Thank you, Tabang. Yes, I think Shapir has sort of highlighted the start of EPR. And I think we're all excited that EPR is now here, and it gives us an opportunity, whether it would be forced in some way, but for all of us to collaborate and do the right thing that I think we all know we should be doing. So Fibre Circle was established a couple of years back by the paper manufacturers of South Africa in anticipation of the EPR regulations. So we are a producer responsibility organization looking after the paper and paper packaging sectors. We obviously help develop, implement and manage the sector's national EPR schemes and EPR fees. And all of this, of course, will be done in accordance with the Section 18 regulations. We are a non-profit company, and then, of course, we also have public benefit status, which is good. And, of course, we are all registered with the department, and I would also urge everybody that needs to be registered with the department and the different PROs to do so ASAP. And we're proud to say that just about 100% of all the paper manufacturers of South Africa are members. And we represent the certain sectors in the paper industry, which would cover the packaging paper sectors, the office paper sectors, newsprint, magazines and coated papers, paper labels and sack, and then of course multi-layer papers. And this would of course include beverage cartons as well as paper cups. And I think the idea is for EPR, apart from all the other criteria, is to identify the challenges out there and to find solutions through collaborative value chain work. And I've heard in the previous session, I heard the word collaboration a lot, and I think it is very important as an industry, as government, as a consumer, and everybody in the value chain. This is not something that one of us or one specific group can find solutions for and get the challenges overcome. We all need to do that. Thank you very much, Tabang.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marias. Definitely, I look forward to exploring that conversation with you around collaboration, how we can do it, what are the practical mechanisms that we can apply to ensure that it is successful. Mr. Lubele?
Thank you for that intro, Tabang. I'm quite excited actually to be sitting with just amazing leaders in the industry. And I think this just having all these different stakeholders in one room is a demonstration that we're definitely heading into the direction. As you might know, that the EPR really encourages producers, brand owners, retailers, and importers to design their product in such a way that it ends up back into their supply chain. We at Gudoti are a technology company, and we have identified a few challenges that would serve as roadblocks for EPR. The first one being that there is a lack of data in the industry. We have, in fact, done some really interesting pivots over the past few months where we went into different business models trying to understand ways of bringing materials back into brands' supply chain, into selling materials back into the supply chain. And we even looked at incorporating the informal waste sector into this EPR, because it's when we speak about post-consumer recyclables, you cannot discount the informal sector and the important role that they play. So what Godoti is a technology company. We're based in Joburg. We have operations in South Africa, Cape Town, Pretoria, as well as Gauteng, as well as Zambia and India. And what we are really is a platform that integrates all the different waste and recycling stakeholders into a single environment. And that environment, as I mentioned, it includes informal waste reclaimers or collectors. It includes recyclers, it includes manufacturers, brands. And really the idea is to not only increase the recycling rates as well as divert waste from going to landfill, but we also want to have a really good understanding of, and this is the primary step, to have a really good understanding of how much waste is where, who has it. And as we do increase the recycling rates, how do we then uplift communities as well? So really, our platform enables brands and manufacturers to establish these supply chain in order to source or offload their waste material, at the same time empowering the communities.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you. We look forward to engaging further about those limitations that you mentioned. Mr. Bala?
Thank you so much, Thabang, and thanks to my fellow panelists and colleagues who are joining the webinar. My name is Bala Nengovela. I work for SALGA, which is the Association of Municipalities in South Africa. From the SALGA side, Chair, we welcome the EPR and the regulations. You would know that the materials that have been identified to have been needing to undergo the EPR are across all municipalities in the country. So from our side, we welcome the EPR as I've indicated, and we would like to collaborate with all necessary stakeholders or the relevant stakeholders in the sector. You would know in terms of the roles and responsibility, we will have to have the discussion around how do we get this material out of the streams that are going to landfill sites. And that discussion has already started taking place, as colleagues from the industry have indicated, and there is a fertile environment for the discussion. We may situate it wherever we want, but there is that kind of conducive environment to have a discussion. And I like what all the speakers have indicated earlier to say, it's about getting all who needs to do what they're supposed to do what they need to do. So that's very critical part. And from our side, we are willing to play our role as municipalities. And I must, as I conclude, Chair, indicate that from all what is entrusted with local government as indicated in the Constitution, I think it's Schedule 5 of the Constitution, I think we have made a decision that it will myopic of us to think that we can do all those on our own. So partnership for us from where we're coming from, it's very critical, and then we're willing to partner with all the relevant stakeholders in the implementation of the EPR. I would leave it at that at the moment, Chair. Thanks.
In fact, Mr. Nongwela, as a accountable partner, or rather as a entity that observe municipalities, you should be leading this conversation, because EPR is a legislative matter. So we are going to corner you this morning, and you are right. I think we are at the right place.
Okay.
But we are at the right place, like you're mentioning, because all the stakeholders that need to participate in this conversation and also assist municipalities in achieving their strategic objectives are right here. So I really do look forward to the engagement. Maybe let me start with you there, Rodney, from Tetra Pak. Maybe what is EPR? I mean, for somebody who is watching this that has no knowledge of EPR, but they are an SMME, particularly in the packaging sector, how can you explain it in simple terms? What is it, and what is its primary objective? What is it there to achieve?
Yes, so well, EPR is extended producer responsibility, and the way the legislation is worded in South Africa is that it's the producer of the packaging that has the responsibility to ensure that the packaging is collected for recycling at end of life. So we need to take responsibility for the collection, the recycling of the packages that we're putting out into the marketplace. So as a producer, we work with our customers who are the brand owners, the fillers of the packaging. We work very closely with the retailers that are selling the products. And then ultimately the product ends up with the consumer. So extended producer responsibility starts from the producer and goes right through to the consumer. And, you know, we've seen from the previous panel discussion that we had, I think the consumer, once they understand the system and they're educated, I think you're going to get a lot of participation and collaboration from consumers as well, because they're going to understand what's being introduced. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to communicate what we're doing as the EPR system, and for consumers to embrace it and to engage and to actually participate in this as well. Crucial about EPR is that there must be a value of the waste that is being collected. We saw in the previous panel discussion as well that sometimes there's not sufficient or waste might be collected and it might pile up because there's no end market for the recycled product. So a lot of our focus in EPR with regard to what we're doing as a sector, the liquid board packaging, is to focus on really creating the value of the waste through end product development. So EPR is across the entire value chain, and it's involving many stakeholders. And we've heard this word so often today: partnership and engagement and collaboration, and that's what's required to make EPR work.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Perhaps, Shabir, you can extend on what Rodney has said, particularly when it comes to the end user, the man on the ground, the consumer. How are they affected by this? Because earlier on, you did mention that from a legislative perspective, it is a necessity. However, it does have its challenges and its limitations when it comes to the implementation. And of course, anything that is implemented hits the consumer first. So how is the consumer affected in this regard, and the end user, and how can we circumvent those challenges in retrospect?
Great. Thank you, Tabang. I think the big thing about the consumer is about there are still, with all due respect, high levels of apathy towards recycling in South Africa.
Yes.
And we as consumers, we consume the content of the product, and we still have a throwaway society. We believe someone else is going to pick it up. But what we need to do as consumers, and we look at consumers from from our sector, the consumers are a key stakeholder in the value chain, because you and I, as well as consumers, we demand products, or we demand also what packaging needs to be used. And that's when the brand owners decide, okay, we'll produce a bottle or a can or whatever it is. I mean, be it plastic, be it glass, be it paper, we'll produce a pack which is suitable and wanted by the consumer. So the consumer has a huge influence from well before a product is even thought through. When you go into product development, the important thing is it has to be consumer or user friendly and fit for purpose as well. So definitely the consumer, we look at EPR schemes, plays a critical role, because as my colleagues on the panel has indicated, EPR cannot be addressed by government individually or industry. It needs everyone across the value chain, from the raw material producer to the consumer. And it is the consumer that really holds the key to the success of EPR when consumers start, as consumers start practicing separation at source. In that, I mean that the recyclables at your household are put into a separate container, and then they are collected separately and do not go with your normal wet waste into landfill, because the earlier we intercept the material, that is, the earlier the consumer sorts the material, the better quality material we get for recycling as well, and we prevent that from entering landfill. So basically, in a nutshell, the consumer is critical, and our plea to consumers across, as Packaging South Africa, our plea is that consumers really start working together, and let's make EPR a reality. Because what we would not like as consumers as well, if our favorite packaging is banned because we're not adhering or complying to the EPR regulations, would we be happy? The final point I'd like to make in terms of EPR, at the end of the day, the more consumers do, the lower the EPR fees will be, because the EPR fee eventually will be paid by the consumer. So the cooperation of consumer will be key in terms of keeping the EPR costs as low as possible if we can increase collection rates rather sooner than later. Thank you.
Collection rates. Hey, now I'm worried because now I'm a consumer, Shabir. So anything that says rates, taxes, levies, cost, money, I get worried. So I want to explore those rates in the next question. Thank you so much for that. Francois, maybe you can come in here. You spoke about, collaboration and the importance of it. I feel, or rather believe, that collaboration could be a critical strategy to tighten legislation in South Africa and in other countries regarding to EPR. What does it look like? Can you paint a picture for me, collaboration being beyond meetings and dialogues? How can we practically apply it as a strategy to ensure that EPR is successful, and alongside its limitations, making sure that we resolve that as well?
Tamang, I think we might have lost Francois.
Oh, we lost it.
I'm not seeing him on the screen.
Oh, yeah, we have lost him. Maybe Gift, you can come in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the success of EPR needs to be something that we can measure. And if you look at the value chain of waste recyclables, you have different actors, all at different stages. You have the sorting and separation, which, as mentioned previously by my colleagues, it is mostly consumers. And in the sorting and separation, what we've seen in South Africa is an increasing amount of reclaimers. In fact, a recent study does show that about 80 to 90% of all household waste that is produced passes through the hands of reclaimers. Then from that, you go to your recyclable collections, and this is where you have your buyback centers, your small scale waste management companies that made it their business to really collect these materials that are being produced. Then you go to your manufacturers, eventually going back to brands. And for me, a way of measuring the success of EPR would need to involve a really good way of having visibility of what's happening. Now, I'd say that because in my experience, we have seen that as it stands, the industry is not necessarily working together. I mean, we have been in different communities where we have met a huge brand that is putting in some significant investment within communities to try and encourage recycling and raise awareness. And yet in the same community, there's a buyback center, but this buyback center is not part of this program. In that same community as well, you have recycling, informal reclaimers who are also not necessarily a part of this. So for me, what a successful EPR case study looks like is firstly having that good visibility to say that we can see that as brand X, we manufacture bottles, and these bottles are as a result ending up in XYZ communities. But within that community, we have individuals who are picking it up or individuals who are bringing these bottles back to us. We can see where these bottles are going. They're going to the specific buyback center, and we are in turn buying these materials from these buyback centers. And at Kudoti, we are quite fortunate to have such use cases. We are working with a few brands in South Africa that have really made it their objective to try and procure materials from the communities that these materials could be found in rather.
Thank you so much for that. I think we are getting Francois back. Maybe before I go back to Francois, let's go to you, Bala. What is the municipality doing in the context of EPR? Francois, welcome back. I posed a question, but I'll come back to you once you get settled. No worries about that. So Bala, what is the municipality doing in the context of EPR and also getting the material out of the streams, like you said? I mean, just maybe active initiatives that we can trace.
No, thanks, Tabang. You would know that before the regulations, municipalities have been putting efforts, I would put it like that, some sort of efforts in trying to divert waste from going to landfill sites. Sure. And some of those waste have been going into recycling or any other initiatives. So recently, I mean, you have municipalities who've got the recycling infrastructure. You've got municipalities who've got projects like separation at source. It could be on different stages. So you have some sort of infrastructure that has been put. You've got some sort of activities that have been undergoing. Obviously, some of the activities have been coming with the support of the industry. Some they've been led by municipalities. So I think from where we need to depart is that let's look at the targets that are there with respect to the EPR, or what is expected of the sector with regard to the EPR. Let's look at the infrastructure that we have and the infrastructure that is needed in order to meet those targets, and some of the activities that different stakeholders need to play. Now, once we have that kind of a map, then we know then who needs to do what. We've got waste pickers in the sector. We've got consumers or households that need to play a role. We've got industry. We've got municipalities. Do we have proper laws that enables us to reach the target as the sector, not necessarily as individual role player within the sector? So then we say, then who's responsible for ensuring that we've got a legislative environment that is enabling activities that we would like to put in place so that we meet the EPR regulation, EPR requirements. So that's where then we then start allocating roles and responsibilities. So obviously from municipal side, there have been activities, as I've indicated. I'm trying to answer directly your question. There are infrastructure that are there. Then let's have a discussion on how do we use what we have. We don't have to start from the scratch. So what kind of conversation that we need in order to take the process forward from where we are at the base where we are. I would leave it at that, Tabang. Thanks.
Mr. Ngovela, I'm very happy that you mentioned that. But I'm also equally concerned to say what is available. And it's not like these strategies or the initiatives have just come up. They've always been there. So you are right in saying we need to identify what is available and how can we assist, because I think it's time as different sectors, whether it's government, corporate, even citizens, we need to urgently commit to long-term strategies, because now landfills are killing people. Pollution is killing people. Climate change is coming through. It's killing people. And packaging has a lot to do with that. So we'll come back to you just to advise us what is available. Even if you can give us two, just tell us the two initiatives that are there and how we can equally be involved. We've got Tetra Pak here. Tetra Pak, I know,
They're going to make things happen. They made this panel discussion happen. So things will move with Tetra Pak. The money is there. Just tell us what must be done, because our people are dying. You know, people are people are in complicated situations. We need help. I think let's go to you, Francois. We spoke about collaboration, and I had asked this to Gift, who answered it quite well. But I also just want to receive your sentiments on that. How do we, when we talk about collaboration with regards to EPI, bearing in mind all value chains that currently exist and all stakeholders that are involved, how can we collaborate better? If you can paint a picture for me that is outside of dialogue and discussion, what do you envisage the collaboration to look like, particularly from your organization?
Thank you, Tabang. I must apologize for disappearing. We had a power failure, so I'm on a hotspot. Luckily, I managed to get back on. Yeah, I think one needs to look at EPR from various points of view, and it's not just one thing; it's many things. And when we talk collaboration, I think we need to look at the entire value chain and all the stakeholders in that value chain. And it's important to start firstly at understanding it. Like Gift has said, there's very little data available. And I think mainly so because in the past there were a lot of free riders as such, people not belonging to the voluntary PRO schemes in the past. And therefore their data and so forth and information on what is being put into the South African market and so wasn't really available. So one of the things we need to do is to determine what is exactly the tonnages of and what types of packaging is actually entering South Africa, what the challenges are in terms of those packaging and what the solutions could be. And in terms of that, we could also look at design for purpose, of course, which is important because we also need to take into account the effect of food waste in South Africa. And as far as I understand, it's way over 30%. And that's substantial. So design for purpose is very important. But by doing that, obviously, we create challenges in terms of collection and recycling situations. So when we talk collaboration, we need to really start from the design point right through and right down until we get to the actual collection of those products. We need to talk about the education. We need to talk about awareness. There's just a host of things. And therefore, all I can really say to this is that all the stakeholders in the value chain need to talk to each other, need to understand the processes, and need to come to a joint situation where open discussion can happen with understanding the economics of scale, etc., etc. At least the one good thing is that extended producer responsibility, regulated now, does offer a chance for stakeholders or producers to collect money in terms of finding or funding those particular solutions. So it's going to be a baby step situation. We have to start somewhere. We're probably going to make some mistakes going forward, but I think we will learn. And in the end of the day, I believe that in a couple of years, we will have a very good system going, and I'll be quite proud to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, there, Francois. You've also mentioned critical points. I think maybe let's go back to you, Rodney. Perhaps you can extend on that. And you also were part of the previous panel discussion, previous, as in you heard what was being said. There were a couple of sentiments around recycling. And, it helped me change perspective on what it really is. And I think it was mentioned that, increase in recycling or recycling initiatives that currently exist are quite costly. And one way or another, somebody has to pay the price. So my question to you, Rodney, is what is Tetra Pak doing besides recycling initiatives to ensure, that we're moving in sustainable packaging? Because it's all well and good for us to have a legislative framework, but what is the actual cause or reason behind this legislation? It's the packaging part. So what are the other things that Tetra Pak
is doing in response to EPR and also sustainable packaging besides recycling?
When it comes to sustainable packaging, already 75% of our product is derived from paper, which is a renewable resource. And as we discussed earlier, our intent is to increase the renewable content of our carton packages because it has a lower climate impact than other types of packaging. So that's definitely a direction we're going into from a sustainable packaging point of view, as long as whatever we're doing does not compromise food safety. We have now started looking at the use of recycled content in our packages for the first time ever. Some of the polyethylene, we've done some trials in Europe, and ultimately our product ambition by 2030 is that our package will be made out of renewable and or recycled content. So that is when you talk about the sustainability of our packaging and the journey going forward. It's crucial, though, that we still have aluminium in our packaging now, which will ultimately be eliminated. But the aluminium and polyethylene content of our packages, we must ensure that we have sustainable recycling solutions for that. And quite frankly, that has been a challenge in the past, not only in South Africa but globally. But I mean, we have some clever engineers that have worked with this component of our packaging, because we cannot say our carton's fully recyclable if only the fiber is being extracted and the polyethylene and the aluminium isn't being extracted. So, other things that we do, for example, the single-use plastic straw that is used in a lot of our packages, we encourage consumers to push the straw back into the package. It'll get recycled in the recycling process. And when it comes to the caps, we're spending a lot of money on designing a tethered cap that will remain attached to the package to avoid litter in future years. So, this is an ongoing topic and ongoing work that we do with regard to our packaging on an ongoing basis. And it's a journey.
Thank you so much there, Rodney. When you guys remove the aluminium, please go to Nivea and all the roll-ons, because they've got aluminium in the roll-ons, which are now killing us. It causes breast cancer, even in men. So aluminium is a very serious issue. Please, Rodney, prioritize that, because we want to smell good, but it can't be at a price. We can't pay the cost of smelling good. Please help us with that. Okay. Can we then have Shabir there? Just to also, maybe you can extend on what Rodney has said. I think the previous panel really set the foundation for us. Maybe Shabir, you can help us then answer, how can we, convert waste into valuable products? Because I think part of packaging is then saying, the different materials that come together to ensure that packaging is possible. Some of them are not so good for the environment. Some of them are harmful. Some of them are beneficial. But how can we convert waste into valuable products so that the consumer and the end user can then invest and see value in initiatives like EPR, because it's working for them somehow? So maybe you can tell us what Packaging SA is also doing to ensure that waste is converted into a valuable product.
Great, thanks, Tabang. Yeah, I think it's important to take note. In South Africa, we collect about 58% of all paper and packaging placed in the market. Yes. So a huge amount. Our collection rates for paper and packaging in South Africa are extremely good. And the benefit, if I'd like to digress a little bit to answer your question. Sure. When the Chinese put a ban on the import of products, on the import of packaging or waste, it had a huge impact on the American and the European markets. It was called Operation Sword, if I remember correctly. And what happened is the Chinese, and now it's the Malaysians and also other countries in the Far East, have said, sorry, as the East, we are not the dumping ground of the first world country. And that has had a huge impact on recycling, or as they call it, recycling in Europe and America, but it's actually not recycled in those countries. The material is purely collected and then sent out or dumped to other countries, such as developing countries or countries that would buy the material. So once the Chinese ban was put in, it's had a huge impact on collection and disposal activities for material that's collected in these so-called first world countries. South Africa, we are rather fortunate. Very little of our material collected is exported. And the primary reason for that is the paper and packaging industry has invested over 40, 50 years, in fact, longer than that, in terms of beneficiation and recycling facilities. So South Africa is very independent in the sense that majority of our materials, albeit small quantities, are exported. Majority of the materials that are collected, because you need to have an end-use market. It's pointless collecting material if you don't have an end-use market. So definitely our material is beneficiated. What we're also looking at from Packaging SA and our members is what's important is the design for recycling. So you design a product which is on our website, which is a guideline on how to design your products for packaging designers. So these products can be recycled, because in line with EPR, we need to also comply with the principles of the circular economy. So definitely South Africa has great end-use markets, and what we always like to do is not to downscale material or downcycle material, but rather recycle it back into the same product if possible. However, one needs to take into account that this is not possible for every product, because certain types of packaging can't be recycled infinitely, but then you find alternate markets where our members, which include the PROs, are making efforts, and part of the EPR scheme is to find alternate markets and really where the material can be upscaled or upcycled rather than downcycled. So we see huge opportunities in the secondary market as well, albeit that we have a very robust beneficiation and recycling industry in South Africa.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Maybe a gift, you can come in there, just extending to what Mr. Shapir has mentioned. Kudoti is, you did say that it's a company that is based in technology. How can we then, localize packaging systems through technology in this country or in this continent?
Yeah, thanks for that, Tabang. I think maybe let me try and answer that through two use cases that we are currently, or we've done in Kudoti. So recently we launched a project with Nestle, and the reason is we are realizing that recycling is not enough. Recycling alone is not enough. And I'll elaborate on what I mean by that. Recycling just entails people collecting waste and then selling them for, whatever, for money. What we have seen is it's a very essential part of EPR, but it is not the only one. Besides or after or before recycling, there are other parts as well that needs to be encouraged and acknowledged within the value chain. With Nestle, we are doing a pilot project where we are including 100 reclaimers within Tembisa to try and give them all the necessary tools, equipment, and support needed so that they do recycling. But what we then do is we work as well with the buyback center. And the buyback center is there to buy these materials from these recyclers, and we are then able to put in subsidies within this buyback center, such that when they do purchase these recyclables from these individuals, they get a little bit more than what they were getting previously. We then extend this to try and connect a buyback center with a manufacturer and or a brand that will then purchase these materials in their facility. And all of that can be seen. So from when a recycler comes into the buyback center's site, we are able to record the type of material that they are collecting, the amount of material that they are collecting, the name of that person, and get the tonnages of the materials collected all the way to how much a manufacturer or a brand is buying back. I want to mention the second use case, which is quite interesting, and it's with Distel in Cape Town. We started about 2 years ago with Distel, and they were already putting in some investment within communities, trying to make them aware of what recycling is and the negative implication recycling has in their community. But what they didn't have is a good system that enabled them to have the sustained impact within communities, which is something that is really important as well. When we put in these different investment into communities, and I know a lot of PROs who are pushing EPR are doing that. They are putting in assets, they're putting in investment to try and encourage recycling. But you would see that once an initiative is launched, the following year, another new initiative is launched, the following year, another new initiative is launched. And I would even stretch it to say that even some of our local governments, they've put in so much money into trying and encourage recycling, but yet it seems that every single year it's a new thing that needs to be invented. So back to my use case with Distel, we started with about 70 reclaimers. We also trained them on how to use technology and really include them or integrate them from a technology point of view into this value chain. What really is exciting is this project has now expanded. We are now launching in Soweto, KZN, and Pretoria as well. But what this use case has shown is private sector, communities, as well as government came together. With the Western Cape, with the Department of Environmental Affairs in Western Cape and the City of Cape Town coming into this project, they have seen that, wait, you guys are able to tell us how much waste is being collected within a specific community. You are able to give us the names of the people who are doing this. We want to then take these people and enable them or include them in our EPWP program and give these guys stipends. And so all of a sudden, all these different individuals who were just doing recycling were now included in a partnership that the government is leading to try and give them more opportunities. And the idea, once again, is to try and give back these materials into the Distel group so that we move away from this CSI or sustainability initiatives where we're just putting in a little bit of money every single year to look good. And we are then moving away from that to supply chain, a core functional feature that is within companies that would enable these individuals to benefit in a very sustained way.
Thank you very much for that. Perhaps, Bala, you can come in there just extending from what Gift has said. How can we aid municipalities? One, in the implementation of EPR, I know you spoke about collaboration, but what other mechanisms can we use? But also, two, how can we protect our communities? Because remember, the municipality is responsible for leading regions and for leading communities as well. How can we also protect those communities against the limitations of EPR? Because I'm also worried that as much as it's a legislative framework, who is driving it? Who is behind it? Is it multinational corporations? Is it the private sector that also sees a benefit in it? And this is why I've been asking a lot about the end user. How do they benefit? How do we protect them? So maybe, Bala, you can come in that respect.
Thanks, Thabang. Yeah, I think where municipality comes from, I think the key responsibility that municipality needs to do and that they're striving to do is to clean up the public spaces. That's very important. And then with EPR, I think we see that as an opportunity as well to ensure that the material that are polluting the environment, polluting our waterways, then through a number of collaboration or different nature of collaboration with relevant stakeholders, then we should get this material where it's supposed to have gone, even from the first place. So earlier you asked a question, Thabang, that you touched on the issue of landfill sites. They are not only the danger to communities, but also from the side from the side of municipalities, they are getting full. So we need to preserve those existing landfill sites as much as possible. And this is one of the initiatives that it's going to be assisting us, in our view, in diverting waste from going to landfill sites. Hence, we don't see that as a responsibility of one partner, as you might have seen on the regulation that which says then it is a responsibility of producers financially and operational wise to ensure that the identified products are diverted from going to landfill site. So we feel that we will also play a role in ensuring that that is achieved, because this is a system in our view. It's a set of things that needs to happen. And if one does not function, then the whole system will be affected. And I like what Francois said as well, to say we need to start somewhere, but it needs everyone to do their part. And that's why from our side, I'm giving that commitment that in our engagements with municipalities, there is willingness to play our role. And we will also from the association level, then we'll be constantly engaging our members to ensure that they do what they're supposed to do. We currently advising them on what EPR means for them and what they're supposed to do. So that's also part that we're busy with. In terms of mechanisms, I think as Francois, I'll refer to Francois and what Francois said as well. You know, we would have to take a baby step. Obviously, I think other panelists as well as mentioned, there will be mistakes that would have happened in the process. But I think we really need to start. Obviously, the key stakeholders, in our view, in terms of who needs to drive this process, I see industry, I see municipalities, I see waste speakers, and obviously communities, because it all boils within the communities. But the three key stakeholders, it will be municipality, industry, as well as waste speakers, as relates to recycling. And obviously you have national government and province will come as a monitoring and providing advice. So I would like to leave it at that, Thabang and colleagues. Thanks.
So much for that. Just lastly, Francois, maybe you can come in there. With Fiber Circle, are there any active initiatives that the organization is doing to implement EPR or to support the framework of EPR, particularly in paper packaging, because that's the space that you specialize in?
Yes, thanks, Thabang. No, definitely. And Fiber Circle is currently drawing up the EPR schemes for our different sectors, as I've mentioned earlier on. And definitely in those plans, as we call them, you know, all the criteria for EPR is covered. But I think with emphasis, of course, on the things we're talking about now. So SMME development, BEE transformation, those are things that are very high in our plans. And I think the important thing is to understand that those plans must be sustainable businesses and not like Gift has said has happened in the past. And I think Bala has also mentioned it, where initiatives were done just to gather some points or good feelings. We are looking at sustainable, economically viable businesses that needs to be set up, run by SMME and Black entrepreneurs in the value chain. We do understand, and somebody, I think in the previous gathering has spoken about the volumes, the lack of volumes to make things sustainable. So I think all those things are taken into consideration when we look at our implementation plans, you know, so that we actually do manage to get to that point. And I think that's also where a lot of collaborations in terms of PROs will happen, because a lot of the initiatives will consider the collection of many waste streams that are not particularly only with Fiber Circle. It may be the polycos and those ones as well. And yes, and then of course, education and awareness. I think that's very important. So we play a huge role in that. We've got accredited training programs in Fiber Circle, which we're very proud of. And that's where we teach entrepreneurs. We also do mentorship in terms of those businesses, just to help them to get going. And of course, we do a lot of research and development. And we've just spent quite a bit of money in terms of finding solutions for certain products or paper products that are very difficult, if not almost impossible to recycle and not being recycled in South Africa. And of course, those the outcome of that research and development will lead to SMME development for small businesses that will actually take those research and developed technologies and start a little business. That must be sustainable and economically viable. And yeah, so we take it very seriously, and I think all the PROs do, to be quite honest. We want things to happen, and we want things to work. The collaboration with municipalities, as well as says, is critical. Municipalities, without the support of municipalities, I don't actually know how we can actually get EPR rolling and staying rolling. So it's great to hear that Bala says that there's a very big commitment from the municipality side, and I think it's going to be critical. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francois. Let me just read the comments from the virtual chat, and then please, can all of you prepare your closing remarks? We are out of time, unfortunately. We need to actually do a pre-recording so that everyone has about 30 minutes each to get through this topic. So I'm just going to go through the comments. Please prepare your closing remarks, and then we'll conclude the panel discussion on EPR. So Lynn says, Zippy says, do not litter, zap it in. Yes, it's an answer to me because I asked what Zippy is. And the Zippy bin, recycling refuse bins that were placed all over everywhere. So that was at the time Zippy was around. Karen says, DFFE registration site is down and has been down for the whole of last week. We alerted a number of our suppliers to register, and they are very concerned that they can't get through. She then says a lot of consumers are prepared to separate properly, but the collection services are not necessarily collecting them like that. So clearly also indicating a concern in that area that we mentioned. Margaret says, please let Francois back in. Okay, Margaret. Francois, you everybody's favorite this morning, hey? Bala, Karen, Margaret. Man, you've got game. You need to tell me your secret there, Francois. Margaret says, oh, he has power failure, but has rejoiced. Okay, let's we'll go through that. Thank you so much, Karen, for the clarity. Samantha says municipalities need to get service delivery right before we can get EPR right. Sure, profound point. I drove along Olifantsfontein Road the other day. Litter was lining the waterway from kilometers. Municipal trust needs to be rebuilt. She then says the projects you're referring to, or the infrastructure for that matter, have not really yielded waste management for the longest time. The dysfunctional municipalities pose a serious threat in dealing with waste issues. Margaret then says, how do you change behavior? People litter. Very interesting question there. How do we change behavior indeed? Maybe these are some of the things that you can add in your closing remarks. Samantha says, Rodney, so does my milk carton actually store carbon because it came from a tree that stored carbon? So I guess, Rodney, you can maybe answer that as well in your closing remarks. Karen then says, a lot of the PRO fees are not incentivizing producers to use more sustainable packaging options. Why is this allowed? Shabir, I think maybe you can come in there. She then says a lot of PRO fees are not incentivizing producers to use more sustainable packaging options. Why is this allowed? Janssen says educating youth in littering and recycling will be a good start. Absolutely agreed. Karen says, gift, I loved that comment of investing when you see a working model and not just building more new ones. Anela then says, Fiber Circle in 2021 has trained 421 new and existing entrepreneurs in recycling. To date, more than 150,000 school pupils have been reached through our school programs. Thank you very much, Anele, for giving us that data. It is absolutely necessary, and we will definitely be in touch with the initiatives that Fiber Circle is committed to. Can we start with our closing remarks? I think maybe, Rodney, I'll leave you for last. Let me go to Shabir. You can start, and then we'll have Francois, we'll then have Gift, and we'll have Bala, and then we will have Rodney, in that order.
Great. Thanks, Tabang, and thanks for everyone who have joined the webinar. Some very interesting comments. I've just been now onto the government website, the SAWIC website, and it is working. I wasn't last week as well. I'm not sure if someone's still having problems, but if there is, Bev has my details that you can contact me. I'll address it with the department directly. So really that would be an absolute pleasure. And I see it's working now. The point in terms of the EPR fees, why are people not, in terms of the fees not being, fees will be differentiated for difficult to recycle products or products that are not designed for recycling. They certainly will carry a higher EPR fee. Products which cannot be recycled at all will carry the highest EPR fee. Products which are the easiest to recycle, so definitely it comes back to the brand owner on choosing, and the brand and designers or packaging designers to come back to products that are easily recycled. So I tend to not agree that if the EPR fee will promote non-sustainable packaging. It will certainly, the fee is determined if one looks at the EPR regulations as well. There's a whole host of comments in terms of design, the ease of recycling, the design for recycling, and so forth. So definitely the fees will be lower for products that are easy to recycle, undoubtedly. And just in closing, EPR, and we've spoken a lot on collaboration. I believe collaboration across the value chain, from industry to government, and very welcoming. And we've been engaging with Bala and his team as well from Salga. I believe there's lots of potential, there's lots of expertise with municipalities and from the private sector as well. And it is imperative that we work together to find the best solutions in terms of implementing successful EPR in South Africa. And I'm very confident by working together, we certainly will make EPR a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabir. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabang. Well, after Shabir's good closing remarks, I don't know what's left to say. Apart that I think, it's definitely important that everybody that is needs to be compliant with EPR. And I think do the right thing, get registered with your relevant PROs, get registered with DEF, get onto the program. Let's all collaborate, and we've used that word a lot today. Let's find the solutions. The challenges are there, many of them. And unless we have the solutions sorted out collaboratively, it's not going to be a solution. We need to look at many, many things. But yes, I think I agree with Shabir. The EPR will work. We will skim it and push it and knead it, as they say, until it fits its purpose. And the purpose is to divert waste from landfill. And I think we know our responsibilities as producers. We're responsible for the end of life collection and the recycling of our products. And Fiber Circle will obviously do its best to enable that environment for all our producers and our members. Thank you very much for Tetra Pak as well, and everybody for setting up this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. I think I just want to maybe start with the thank you. To everyone who's here. I think I'm a huge fan of your firm, all of you individually. So I've been
included in the fan, your fan, and Bev as well. Thanks. Please include us.
I really am just encouraged by the efforts each stakeholder here is doing. It's really encouraging to see. I think in closing, I just want to say that EPR is about creating a true circular economy. And for that to happen, we need to also lean towards technology or systems that will help us have a really good sustained impact around this. This topic isn't just a South African problem. It's a global problem, and it's a true threat to the existence of human beings, even if I may be so bold. So we need to lean on technology. We need to look into systems that will really help us as well have this really good sustained impact as we go forth. And it needs to be inclusive. It has been said, but it needs to be inclusive. It needs to include the small guys in the townships. It needs to include, the buyback centers. It needs to include the manufacturers, the big brands, the government. It needs to all be inclusive. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gift. Bala?
I thought I should show colleagues a little bit of my face since from the beginning, and then I was not showing the face.
Half of the face now. We can't see the full. Yeah.
You can't see it. You can't see it in full.
Yes, we saw the half, but thank you. We can see your eyes at least, and your nose a little bit. There we go. You're coming. That's right. There we go. There we go.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of this session. I would just like to latch on what one colleague has mentioned, the issue of a need for improvement in terms of service delivery. And I fully agree with the assertion or with the comment that the colleague has made. However, what we need to look at is how can, while we're striving and assisting municipalities to improve the service delivery in the area of waste, how can we use also the EPR also to be part of the instrument that can also attribute to or that can result to the improvement of service delivery? Because at the end of the day, we all want to live in a clean and healthy environment.
Sure.
And I see EPR as one of the instruments that brings all of us closer to each other and work together. And from our side, we see it as a tool that we will strive also to make it successful. And we appreciate the opportunity as well. Once again, I would leave it at that. And thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Ben. I truly appreciate those sentiments. Thank you very much, Rodney.
Thank you to all the panelists for this engaging session. I think it was a great discussion and engagement. We've had a look at EPR systems, as I said, globally through many of the countries within which we operate. And a critical success factor is the fact that you have operational municipalities that can actually collect the waste for recycling. So it's great to see the municipalities and their commitment to actually wanting to get this right. And that's excellent to see. So that was a huge positive aspect that's come out of this. To the lady that asked the carbon question, please can you get hold of me afterwards? I don't actually have an answer for you, but hopefully through recycling, the carbon will be released. So yeah, please, if you can get hold of me, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to all of you for your time. And also, I just think we need to express and show appreciation for the work that you individually do in the organizations you're part of. It's not easy. People will come with questions that we can't answer. People will come with concerns, and they throw and they lash out, all these comments, but they don't really think about, hey, we're trying, As long as we wake up and we try and keep going, that's the most important thing. So thank you very much for ensuring that indeed we try to achieve the agenda around sustainability and development, mostly in this country. I wish you all the best in the organizations that you are in. Please do more so we can be in touch more. But we'll see you before the next Sustainability Summit, and we look forward to further engagement. All the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the panel discussion around packaging extended producer responsibility. We had the cluster leader sustainability at Tetra Pak from the Greater Middle East and Africa. That was Mr. Rodney Rendez. We also had the Executive Director for Packaging SA, Mr. Shabir Jadham. We also had the Producer Responsibility Organization for Paper Packaging from Fiber Circle, Mr. Francois Marias. And we had the co-founder of Kudoti. Please also be in touch with them, Mr. Gift Lubele. Last but not least, from SALGA, South African Local Government Association, Mr. Bala Ningovela.